The night was quiet, too quiet for Liam's liking. He was sitting outside his small workshop, drinking from a metal cup, when he noticed something strange in the sky. At first, it looked like a falling star, glowing bright as it cut across the darkness, but then it slowed down, twisting, shaking, leaving behind a long trail of smoke and sparks. It wasn't a star at all. It was a ship, a massive one, and from the size of it, Liam knew it was no ordinary vessel. He stood up, squinting his eyes as the ship descended lower. Its hull was dark silver, marked with strange glowing symbols. One wing was broken, fire licking. Along its edge, it spun slowly, like it was fighting to stay in the air. Liam felt a chill go through him. He had seen that design before. Stories whispered in trading posts spoke of it. The warship of the Queen of Vera, ruler of the alien star. Clustered beyond the human colonies, they said she was beautiful and deadly. That she could burn a city for disrespect and spare only those who amused her. And now, her ship was crashing in his world. The ship came down in the valley behind the hills. The impact was so strong, it shook the ground beneath Liam's feet. A wave of dust rose into the air, mixing with the smell of burning metal. He knew he should stay away. The Queen's kind were not known for mercy. But he also knew a ship like that, broken and smoking, was a rare sight. A sight that made every engineer's hands itch. He grabbed his old toolkit, slung it over his shoulder, turning and started walking toward the crash site. The closer he got, the hotter the air became. Trees were burned to black stumps, and the ground was cracked from the heat. The ship was enormous. Its surface reflecting the faint moonlight, alien symbols glowed weakly across its hull. As Liam moved closer, he could hear the hiss of escaping steam and the groan of stressed metal. Then he saw movement. A tall figure stepped out from the shadows of the wreck. Her armor was like flowing silver, shaped to her body. Her eyes glowed faintly gold, locking on him with a look that could freeze blood. This was Hertha Queen herself. She was wounded, a long gash across her shoulder, but she stood straight. Her voice was low, but sharp, human. "Turn around and forget you saw this," she said. Liam didn't move. He was staring at the ship, trying to imagine the damage inside. "I can fix it," he said simply. The Queen tilted her head, almost amused, but her hand stayed near the strange blade at her waist. "You think you can repair a Varan royal vessel?" she asked, her tone dripping with disbelief. "I think broken things should be fixed," Liam replied, "no matter who they belong to." Behind her, shapes moved her soldiers. They were armored from head to toe, their faces hidden, alien weapons aimed at him. Liam felt the danger in the air, but he didn't step back. Instead, he pointed to the smoke pouring from the rear engine. "If you don't repair that, the core will melt, and this valley will become a crater," he said. One of the soldiers muttered something in their language, and the Queen's gaze narrowed. "You have courage, human. Or you have no sense," she said. "Both," Liam answered with a small shrug. The Queen studied him for a long moment. The wind carried the smell of ozone and burning fuel. Finally, she stepped aside. "Enter, but touch the wrong wire, and you die," she warned. Liam gave a small nod. Stepping past her into the wrecked warship, the inside was worse than he imagined. Panels were torn apart. Wires sparked like angry snakes, and the hum of the ship's heart was weak. It was like walking into the chest of a dying beast, and Liam, for reasons even he didn't understand, felt a strange urge to save it from behind him. The Queen's voice followed. "If you betray me, human, I will not hesitate to end you." Her words were cold, but her tone carried something else, to a hint of desperation. Liam didn't answer. He just opened his toolkit, pulled out a wrench, and went to work. Above them, in the far night sky, faint flashes of light appeared. distant shapes moving among the stars. Ships, waiting, watching. Liam didn't know it yet. But they were the Queen's enemies, and they were getting closer. The night had started quietly. But now, it was the beginning of something neither of them could walk away from. The Queen stood near the entrance of her damaged ship, her golden eyes fixed on Liam as if she was trying to read his thoughts. Her soldiers surrounded him in a half-circle, their weapons humming with quiet threat. The air inside the ship was heavy with heat and the bitter smell of burnt metal. Liam could feel their distrust. He knew one wrong move would end with him lying on the floor, but he also knew something else without him. This ship wasn't flying anywhere. You understand what this vessel is, human? The Queen asked, her voice calm but sharp like the edge of a blade. Liam nodded slightly. I know it's yours. I know it's important, and I know it's dying. Her eyes narrowed as if weighing his worth. This ship carries my throne. My command codes, my crown, she said. If it falls into enemy hands, it will be the end of my reign. And the end of my people. She took a step closer, her armor glinting in the flickering light of the sparking control panels. You are a stranger? Yet you came here, knowing the stories about me, knowing the danger. Why? Liam didn't break her gaze. I told you, I fix things. Broken things deserve a chance to work again, he said. A low laugh escaped her lips, not a laugh of humor, but of disbelief. You speak like a fool. Or a man without fear, she murmured. Then she pointed toward the engine room deep in the ship. If you repair it, I will let you leave here alive. No one will hunt you, and your little home will be untouched by my armies. It was an offer, but also a warning. Any other man would have taken the deal and run once the work was done. But Liam's gut told him this was more than just a broken ship, was a battle for time. He could hear the faint rumble of enemy weapons in the distance, like thunder. In space, the Queen noticed his attention drift toward the sound. They are coming for me, human, my enemies. They know I am weak now, but if this ship flies again, I can still win. He should have walked away, but instead he asked, and what happens if I say no? Her eyes hardened. Then you die here, with me, when they arrive, she said without hesitation. There was no room for bargaining. No room for stalling. Liam let out a breath. Then, I guess I'll start fixing your ship. The Queen tilted her head slightly, a strange expression flickering across her face. Very well. But understand this, if you betray me, your death will be slow. She ordered her guards to allow him passage. Though they never lowered their weapons, Liam walked toward the core chamber. The Queen following close behind, the deeper they went. The louder the wounded heartbeat of the ship became, pipes hissed, sparks danced along the floor, and strange alien screens flickered with unreadable code. Liam pulled out his tools and set them on a panel, his mind already working through the damage. Your systems are overheating because of a cracked coolant line, he said, mostly to himself. The Queen's voice came from behind. You can fix it. Maybe, he replied, but I need your people to clear the pressure in the main conduit, or the explosion will fry us both. She spoke a few sharp words in her language, and 2 soldiers rushed to carry out the command. Liam worked fast, his hands moving with confidence. He could feel her watching him, studying the way he touched her ship like it was alive. You risk your life for something that is not yours, she said quietly. Liam glanced back at her. Maybe it is now. An alarm blared suddenly, the sound sharp and urgent. The Queen's communicator lit up with a voice speaking in her tongue, fast, panicked. Her face darkened. They are here, she said, her voice colder than before. Then I'd better work faster. Liam muttered, gripping his wrench tighter. The Queen turned toward her guards, giving rapid orders. The floor shook under the impact of distant explosions as enemy ships began firing on the valley. One of the blasts hit close enough to knock Liam off his feet. The Queen caught him before he hit the ground. Surprising them both, for a moment, their eyes met hers, burning with command. His steady with resolve. Then she released him. Do not die yet. Human, I still need you. Liam smiled faintly. You and me both. He dove back into the work, sealing the coolant leak and redirecting power through a bypass. The engines groaned, then coughed, a faint hum starting to return. But it wasn't enough. The ship still couldn't lift. I'll need more time, he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. You have minutes, she replied, glancing toward the shaking walls. The battle outside was getting closer, louder. Liam's hands moved faster, but in the back of his mind, he knew if he failed, neither of them would see another sunrise. And yet, a strange thought entered his mind. He wasn't just repairing a ship anymore. He was, in some strange way, holding the fate of a queen in his hands. The engine room was alive with danger. Electric arcs jumped between damaged wires, lighting the shadows in blue flashes. Every hum and crackle was a warning that the ship was one mistake away from tearing itself apart. Liam worked in the middle of it all, crouched over a control panel, his hands steady despite the chaos. The Queen stood behind him, silent but watchful. Her soldiers stayed at the edges of the room, eyes sharp, weapons always ready. They didn't trust him, not even a little. And Liam could feel that mistrust like a weight pressing against his back. He pulled a glowing cable from the wall, sparks raining over his arm. The heat burned, but he didn't stop. You humans are strange, the Queen said suddenly. Breaking the heavy silence, you run toward danger instead of away from it. Liam didn't look up. Maybe we just don't like losing. She stepped closer, her shadow falling over him. You think you can win against the galaxy? She asked, her voice calm, but carrying something sharp beneath. Liam smirked faintly. I think I can fix an engine, and right now, that's all that matters. One of her soldiers muttered in their alien language, the tone filled with doubt. The Queen replied in the same tongue, her voice low and clipped. Liam didn't know the words, but he understood the meaning. They didn't believe he could finish in time. Or worse, they thought he might be a spy. A sudden warning tone blared. From the panel, Liam's eyes flicked to the readout. A surge was building in the energy coils, too much, too fast. Back, he shouted, pushing the Queen aside just as a flash of light burst from the panel. The blast wasn't big, but it could have killed her if she'd been standing closer. The Queen stared at him, golden eyes narrowed, but not in anger. You put yourself between me and the blast, she said slowly. That's what you do for your crew. Liam replied simply. Her gaze lingered a moment longer before she looked away. But he caught the faintest shift in her tone when she spoke. Again, she moved around him now, watching his work from different angles. You touch my ship like it's alive, she observed. Liam tightened a bolt. That's because it is. In a way, ships have a heart. You just have to listen to it. Her brow furrowed slightly. In my world, only my royal engineers speak of ships like that. But you are just a human from some backwater planet. Liam looked at her then, the faintest smile in his eyes. Maybe I'm not just anything. Before she could answer, the ship shuddered violently. Another explosion echoed from outside. The battle was getting closer. The Queen tapped her communicator, speaking quickly in her own language. When she ended the call, her jaw was tight. They've broken through my forward defenses. My enemies will be here soon. Liam returned to work, his hands moving faster. I need to access your plasma regulators, he said. She didn't move, just stared at him. Those systems are sealed to outsiders, she replied, her voice suddenly cold again. Then unseal them, unless you'd rather this ship die, Liam said, meeting her gaze without fear. Her eyes locked on his for a long second. Finally, she gave a short order. And one of her soldiers stepped forward, unlocking the heavy panel. Inside, the regulators glowed with unstable energy, pulsing like an angry heartbeat. Liam reached for them, but her voice stopped him. "If you tamper with these, and you are not who you claim to be, the explosion will take us both. Then?" "I guess you'll know I was telling the truth," Liam answered without looking up. He worked quickly. But something about the machinery bothered him. It wasn't just damage, it had been tampered with. The cuts on the wiring were too clean. Too precise. He glanced back at her. Someone did this on purpose. Her face hardened. Sabotage. She said quietly, almost to herself. Her gaze shifted to her soldiers, and for a moment, Liam thought she suspected her own people. The lights above them flickered. Liam reconnected the final coil. The hum of the ship growing stronger. "That should hold for now," he said, wiping the sweat from his brow. But the Queen didn't seem relieved. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice low, human. "If you betray me, I will burn your home from orbit." Liam met her gaze steadily. "And if I wanted you dead, I'd have let that panel take you out 10 minutes ago." A flicker of something trust maybe passed through her expression, but before either could speak, an alarm blared again. The enemy ships were now within firing range. Her soldiers prepared their weapons. The Queen drew her blade, and Liam tightened the last bolt. The engines hummed steady and strong beneath his hands. They were out of time. The first blast hit so hard, the floor under Liam's boots jumped. Metal screamed all around him, and a shower of sparks rained from the ceiling. The ship's walls trembled as if they were alive and afraid. Outside, the roar of enemy fire grew louder, closer, more determined. The Queen was already moving. Her golden eyes fierce. She barked orders in her language, her voice sharp like steel. Her soldiers scattered into defensive positions, weapons glowing in the dim light. The sound of charging plasma rifles filled the air. Liam tightened his grip on his wrench. It wasn't a weapon, but it was all he had. Another blast shook the hull. Making the lights flicker, "They are targeting our weak points," the Queen growled, glancing toward the door. Liam's mind raced. "If they breach the hull before I stabilize the shield generators, this whole ship is going to tear apart," he said. "Then do it," she ordered. "I'll hold them off, before." He could protest. The ship's front corridor erupted in a violent explosion. Smoke poured in, thick and choking. Through it came shadows, sleek, fast. And armed with jagged alien rifles, the enemy had boarded. The Queen met them head-on. Her blade flashing silver in the gloom, she moved with deadly grace. Every strike precise, every step controlled. 2 enemies fell before they could even raise their weapons. Her soldiers engaged the rest. The narrow corridors filled with the thunder of plasma fire. Liam ducked behind a console as stray shots cracked. Into the walls near his head, he forced himself to focus on the generator panel. The protective shields were offline, their circuits fried by the earlier power surge. His hands flew over the controls, pulling wires. Rerouting power, one mistake here, and the entire ship would be wide open to the next barrage. A sudden shout made him look up, one of the enemy soldiers had broken through and was aiming directly at him. Liam froze for half a second, till the Queen appeared in front of him, like a flash of silver. Her blade cut through the attacker's weapon in one clean motion, sending sparks across the room. Then she shoved the stunned soldier back with a brutal kick. "Work, human," she shouted. "I will not save you twice." Liam didn't waste another second. He reached into the generator core, the heat almost burning his skin. Sweat dripped down his face as he reconnected the power conduits. A deep hum began to return, faint but growing stronger. He glanced at the Queen. She was surrounded, 3 enemies trying to overwhelm her at once. But she moved like a storm, her strikes too fast for the eye to follow. A heavy explosion rocked the ship again. The lights went red, alarms screaming in warning. "They've hit the port stabilizers." Liam yelled, "That means nothing if you finish the shields now." The Queen snapped back, cutting another enemy down. Liam gritted his teeth and forced the final connector into place. The generator roared to life. Sending a vibration through the floor, panels lit up in green, the ship's shields surging back. Online, he felt the deep thrum of energy as the barrier formed around the hull once more. The Queen must have felt it too, because her expression changed. For the first time since he met her, there was a flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. But the battle wasn't over. A sudden wave of enemy soldiers flooded in from the rear hatch. Liam saw one raise a weapon toward the Queen's unguarded side. He didn't think. He grabbed a loose cable from the floret's end, sparking with raw power, and swung it like a whip. The live current caught the attacker in the chest, sending him crashing back into the wall. The Queen turned toward Liam for the briefest moment, her lips curving into something almost like a smile. Then she lunged back into the fight, her blade a blur. The enemy began to retreat, their boarding attempt failing against the sudden strength of the repowered shields. They fell back through the smoke, disappearing into the darkness outside. The ship trembled one last time under a distant blast before the guns went silent. Breathing hard, Liam leaned against the wall, his hands still shaking from the adrenaline. The Queen stepped toward him, her armor streaked with scorch marks and blood that wasn't hers. "You fought," she said simply. "I fixed." Liam replied, "The fighting part was just extra." Her golden eyes studied him, as if she was trying to decide whether to call him brave or stupid. The room smelled of smoke, oil, and the sharp temps of victory. But outside the hull, danger still waited. The Queen turned toward the bridge, her voice carrying authority again. "We fly now," she said, "before they return with more." Liam followed her, the repaired systems humming all around them. But somewhere deep inside, he knew this wasn't the end of the fight only. The beginning? The bridge was filled with a low hum of engines. It was a good sound. But Liam knew it wasn't enough yet. The ship could breathe now, but it couldn't run. And unless it could run, they were as good as dead. The Queen stood at the center of the bridge, her presence commanding every soldier in the room. Her golden eyes scanned the control panels. Reading data in a language Liam couldn't understand, she turned toward him. Her voice calm, but with a sharp edge. "The engines live. But the stabilizers are broken. Without them, we'll tear apart the moment we lift off." Liam's gaze shifted to the engineering display. 3 of the 4 stabilizers were flashing red. The last one was barely holding on. "I can fix them," he said, "but I'll need to do it from outside the main hull." One of her soldiers stepped forward immediately. "It is too dangerous." "Let me know," the Queen cut in, her voice firm. "The human understands the ship now. He goes." Liam didn't waste time. He grabbed his toolkit, his breath already quickening as he imagined what it would be like out there. The outer hull was exposed to the night air, and worse, to enemy eyes. He had only minutes before the rival ships found them again. The access hatch hissed open, and cold wind hit his face. Below him, the valley stretched wide and dark. The damaged stabilizer was halfway along the hull, its metal bent and smoking. Every step toward it was a gamble. The surface was slick, and the ship vibrated with every engine pulse as he reached the stabilizer. He knelt down and popped the outer panel. Inside, a mess of shattered circuits and twisted rods greeted him. It looked worse than he expected. "Of course it's worse," he muttered to himself. Pulling out a spanner, sparks leaped at his gloves as he began replacing the fried circuits. One wrong twist here, and the whole thing would explode in his face. In his earpiece, the Queen's voice came through. "Enemy ships moving closer, faster than expected. Tell them to wait." Liam said without thinking, his voice tense as he worked. "I am not in the habit of asking my enemies for favors." She replied dryly, A sudden thud shook the hull. Under his knees, Liam froze, glancing over his shoulder. Shapes were moving in the shadows, small enemy boarding craft. They hadn't given up. They were coming back. He had no weapon, only a wrench and the stubborn idea that he could finish before they reached him. Back inside, alarms wailed, and the Queen's voice rose above the noise. Liam, now would be a very good time to finish. I'm almost there, he shouted back, his hands flying over the last connections. The stabilizer's inner ring was warped, making it impossible to align. He had to force it into place, straining with all his strength until it finally locked. The final bolt was stripped and stubborn. Refusing to tighten, another blast rattled the hull. The enemy was close enough to see now dark shapes against the stars, weapons glowing. Liam clenched his teeth, jamming the bolt in place with one last shove. Done. He called, and without waiting for an answer, he scrambled back toward the hatch. Inside the bridge, the Queen was already giving orders. Lift off, she commanded, her voice like thunder. The engines roared, the repaired stabilizers humming. With renewed strength, the ship rose slowly at first, then faster, the ground shrinking away beneath them. Liam stumbled into the bridge just in time to see the valley fall away completely. The enemy ships fired, bright streams of plasma slicing. Through the air, the Queen's vessel shuddered as the shields took the hits, but it kept climbing, full burn. She ordered, and the stars began to blur. The rival fleet tried to chase, but the newly repaired stabilizers held. The Queen's warship moved like it had been reborn, twisting and turning with precision. One of her officers shouted in their alien language. The Queen's lips curved into a small, dangerous smile. "They can't catch us now," she said, glancing at Liam. Because of you, he didn't know what to say. He was still catching his breath, his hands still shaking from the rush of nearly falling off the hull. "I just tightened a bolt," he muttered. "That bolt saved my crown," she replied without hesitation. The ship finally broke free of the planet's atmosphere. The black void of space stretching endlessly ahead. The enemy ships were still visible in the distance, but they were falling behind. On the bridge, the tension eased, but not completely. Victory in space was never permanent. The Queen walked toward Liam, stopping close enough that he could see the faint scratches on her. "Silver armor, you have earned more than a simple payment," she said softly. "You have earned my trust." For now, the words lingered in his mind. Trust from a ruler like her wasn't given easily, and it wasn't kept without a price. And though the ship was safe for the moment, Liam knew the real journey was only beginning. The hum of the engines had settled into a steady rhythm. The ship was safe, for now. Drifting through the dark stretch of space between systems, Liam stood near the engineering station, wiping oil and dust from his hands. He could still feel the ache in his muscles from tightening that last bolt around him. The Queen's soldiers moved silently, tending to the ship and scanning the sensors for any sign of pursuit. The Queen herself stood at the center of the bridge, her posture as straight as a blade. Her golden eyes were calm now, but there was still something sharp behind them. She gave a few final orders in her language, and her soldiers saluted before leaving the room. Then she turned toward Liam, her steps slow and deliberate. "You will follow me," she said simply, not a request, but a command. Liam hesitated for a moment, then shrugged and followed her through the narrow corridors. The air was warm here, carrying the faint scent of metal, fuel, and something floral he couldn't place. They passed doors guarded by soldiers who didn't look at him, though he could feel their eyes the moment he walked past. Finally, they stopped before a door marked with glowing silver symbols. She placed her hand on the panel, and the door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside was a chamber unlike any part of the ship he'd seen. It was large, with soft lighting that reflected off the polished walls. A great viewing window took up an entire side, showing the endless stars beyond. At the center was a bed larger than any human bed, covered in deep crimson fabric. He stopped in the doorway, uncertain. "This isn't the engine room," he said, his tone cautious. The Queen didn't answer right away. She walked to the bed and removed the metal crown from her head. Placing it on a table, the change was startling without the crown. Without the rigid posture of command, she looked less like a ruler and more like a person. Still dangerous, but different. She turned her gaze back to him. "It is tradition in my culture," she began, "to share rest with the one who saves your life and your throne." Liam blinked. "Rest?" he asked carefully, unsure if he was hearing her right. "Yes," she replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "You worked under fire, faced death, and kept my crown intact. You have proven yourself, and I will honor that." He stood awkwardly at the door. "This isn't really a human thing," he said, scratching the back of his neck. Her golden eyes studied him like she was trying to figure out if he was refusing her or just confused. "In my culture, to refuse would be an insult," she said evenly. "And in yours?" "In mine, we usually just say thank you," Liam replied with a half smile. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled just slightly. "Then consider this." "My thank you," she said. Gesturing to the bed, she lay down on one side, her silver armor shifting softly as she settled against the pillows. Liam stood there another moment before slowly crossing the room. The bed was warm, the fabric smooth. Under his hands as he sat at the edge, "Why me?" he asked quietly. The Queen's eyes stayed on the stars outside. "Because you are not afraid of me," she said simply. "My own people fear me. Even my generals choose their words with care, but you speak plainly, you act without hesitation." He thought about that for a moment, then shrugged. "Fear doesn't fix engines," he said. She gave a low hum of agreement. For a while, neither of them spoke. The steady hum of the ship filled the silence, and Liam could feel the weight of exhaustion pulling at him. It wasn't just his body, it was his mind, too. The last hours replaying over and over. The crash, the repairs, the attack. The Queen standing over him with that impossible mix of threat and trust. He lay back, the ceiling above them a deep metallic gray. From the corner of his eye, he saw her glance at him. "You are under my protection now, human," she said softly, almost like a promise. "No one will harm you while you travel with me." "That's comforting," Liam replied. Though he wasn't sure if it was entirely true, her voice dropped lower. "Understand this on my ship. You are mine to protect. And mine to command." There was no heat in her tone. No threat. Just the calm statement of fact from someone used to being obeyed. Liam didn't argue. He knew better than to test the patience of a woman who could order an entire fleet with one word. He closed his eyes, the sound of the engine steady beneath them. It was strange, lying here beside someone who only hours ago might have killed him for stepping too close. Stranger still was the thought that maybe, just maybe, he trusted her more than he should. The darkness outside the window shifted as the ship moved on, carrying them both into whatever came next. The days that followed passed in a blur. Liam worked on the ship, repairing systems one by one, bringing the warship back to its full strength. He learned that the Queen kept her promises. No soldier interfered with him. No one questioned his place aboard. Still, he could feel their eyes on him whenever he passed. They were trying to figure out why a human walked so close to their ruler. The Queen spent little time in her private chamber now. Most of her hours were on the bridge, guiding the ship toward her homeworld. Every now and then, she would glance at Liam when she thought he wasn't looking, and every time, there was that same unreadable look in her golden eyes. It wasn't quite suspicion anymore, but it wasn't entirely trust either. Finally, the day came. The Queen's home system filled the viewing window, 3 suns burning in the distance. A great jewel of a planet surrounded by massive orbital stations from space. Liam could see the glowing cities, the vast oceans, and the defensive fleet that waited like a silent wall. The Queen stood tall at the front of the bridge, her silver crown back on her head, her armor polished to perfection. She looked every inch the ruler again as they descended toward the royal landing platform. Liam's stomach tightened. This was her territory now. One wrong move, and he would be surrounded by an army loyal only to her. The warship touched down with a heavy thud, and the hiss of decompressing air filled the chamber. The Queen turned. "To him, you will walk beside me," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Why?" Liam asked carefully. "Because you are under my protection." "And they will know it," she replied. The ramp lowered, and sunlight poured into the ship outside. Thousands of her people knelt in perfect rows, their heads bowed, alien banners swayed in the wind, and the sound of drums rolled across the open air. Liam stepped beside her, feeling the weight of so many eyes on him. The crowd didn't look at him with kindness. Some stared in confusion, others in thinly veiled anger. Whispers rippled through them like waves. A human? Walking with the Queen? What is this insult? Is he her servant? Her prisoner? The Queen ignored them all. She led him up the steps toward the great balcony that overlooked the capital. Her voice carried across the open air as she spoke in her own language, every word sharp and commanding. Liam couldn't understand the sentences, but he could feel the power in them. When she finished, she turned to face him, and the crowd went completely silent. Then, in perfect, clear English, she said, "This human repaired my ship when no one else could. He stood beside me in battle, and he kept me alive when my enemies closed in." Her voice rose, steady and certain. "For this, I claim him under my royal protection from this day forward. He is not to be touched by any hand but mine." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Liam's chest tightened not from fear, but from the weight of what she had just done. She hadn't just made him her guest. She had made him part of her life in a way that no one could challenge without defying her directly. The soldiers behind them slammed their weapons against the ground in salute. Some of the nobles in the front row looked displeased, their eyes sharp with jealousy or suspicion, but no one spoke against her. Her word was law here. The Queen stepped closer, so close that Liam could see the faint reflection of himself in her golden eyes. "You belong to no one, human, but now you belong with me," she said softly, so only he could hear. Liam didn't answer right away. He was still trying to process the shift from stranger to guest to something else entirely. The drums started again, and the crowd began to chant her name. The Queen turned to face them. Lifting her hand in acknowledgement, Liam stood beside her, unsure of what his role was now, but deep down, a strange thought crept in. He didn't feel like an outsider anymore. The danger was still there. The uncertainty still lingered. But for the first time since the night he saw her ship falling from the sky, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be, as the suns dipped lower in the alien sky. The Queen glanced at him once more. "This is only the beginning," she said, her voice almost carrying a hint of a smile. And Liam knew, whatever came next, he was already too far in to turn back.